the children of Thala Prime. A crimson sun set over the desolate landscape of Thala Prime, casting long shadows over its war-torn valleys. Mining rigs and corporate logos marred the planet's once beautiful horizon. The war for resources had turned it into a battleground, a war waged between Earth's most ruthless mining corporation, Cerberus Corp., and the native species, the Vorthaki. In the midst of this interplanetary chaos stood Corporal John Weaver, a soldier of fortune fighting for the highest bidder, currently Cerberus Corporation. A seasoned warrior, his soul had been hardened by the countless battles he'd seen. Yet nothing prepared him for the sight he was about to witness. Weaver looked across the battlefield from his entrenched position, waving away the dust from a nearby mortar. A group of Vorthaki warriors were advancing on his position. But these were not the formidable warriors he had been fighting for months. What were these creatures? Weaver looked at these things and saw that the soldiers he was now fighting were a third the size of the Vorthaki he was used to. He gasped as the aliens came into focus. Were these children? He squinted his eyes and saw the small green beings with cold, metal implants protruding from the sides of their faces. Their eyes were empty, devoid of the fear or defiance he'd expect from soldiers on the brink of battle. Instead, they held a blank gaze, like dolls staring into the abyss. They were husks, their innocence ripped away, replaced by cold programming. The thought of fighting children sickened Weaver. As he tightly gripped his rifle, he remembered the rumors of the Vorthaki using cybernetic enhancements. He never imagined it would come to this. The stream of adult Vorthaki soldiers must have been exhausted. What would drive these beings to now use their young as battle fodder? Now, the only thing standing between the corporation and Thala Prime's resources were these unwilling child weapons. Weaver's earpiece squelched and crackled to life. Weaver, what's your status? Your company should be firing on those advancing troops. A cold, corporate voice demanded answers. He glanced back at the cybernetically enhanced children, his gaze locking with the empty stare of the closest one. His heart clenched. They're just kids, he responded, a bitter taste forming in his mouth. A moment of silence from the comms, as if the corporate overlords were contemplating this new information. Change of plans, the voice responded. Neutralize the threat, and collect specimens. Utter shock is all Weaver felt. Specimens? Did they want me to collect one of these children to use as an experiment? Weaver took a deep breath and a moment of silence to collect himself. Then, a question. And if I don't? Silence from the other end. Then, a threat thinly veiled. You're replaceable, Weaver. Collect the specimen, or we'll have to send in Bravo Company to take care of both the Vorthaki and you. His finger trembled on the trigger, the cold metal seeming to sear his skin. The voice in his ear was right. He was replaceable. Another pawn in the corporation's game. But the children before him, they weren't. They were the last of their kind, a dying race's desperate attempt to survive. His grip on his rifle loosened. He looked at the children and saw glimpses of his nephew's face. Little Greggy was about the same size as these child soldiers. He imagined having to fight his brother's son, a 10-year-old, and a wave of nausea hit him. Take the shot, Weaver. His earpiece screamed. Weaver tore out the communicator, the voices of his corporate overlords fading into the barren landscape. He chose not to fight. Not this time. I will not be their executioner. Weaver muttered to himself, images of his nephew, Greggy, filling his mind. He thought of the Vorthaki children before him, their fates cruelly snatched away, their innocence twisted into a tool for warfare. This whole war hadn't been a fight for survival or freedom, it had been a genocide. Corporal John Weaver had chosen his side. He stood up, gun to his side and hands in the air. The children of the Vorthaki paused, their mechanical brains trying to understand what was happening. I won't be the one to end your story. Weaver called out to them, his voice echoing across the desolate battlefield, a solitary beacon of humanity in the heart of war-torn Thala Prime. I won't be a corporate pawn any longer. The cyborg children, confused and manipulated by the programming they no longer controlled, unleashed their full assault onto Weaver. As he fell, He was unaware that his open defiance against the corporate empire was the groundbreaking voice of the rebellion that would one day end their reign of greed.